guys, welcome back to Hear Me Out. I'm E,
I'm D.
and today we're going to talk about a show that had us on a chokehold. It happened a few years ago, but I feel like I'm still not over it, and it's 2023. We got so attached to these characters and these houses, and
Yeah.
we make reference to it like probably every day, or maybe it's just me. I'm talking about Game of Thrones. And I will try not to tell you how I feel about it till the end because, usually I'll just jump at it and I'll be like, I am upset at the following, but I'm not going to do that. So today we're going to I'm going to read the synopsis and then we're going to go over our thoughts on the show. Dee just recently watched it. She just finished it like 10 minutes ago, literally. He likes to go through that torture. Not me. Once was enough.
Yeah, that
I
was
don't know.
my third rewatch. Or
I don't
fourth.
know. I don't know if I gave myself away by saying once was enough. Yeah, because I think I was gonna get like a heart attack. It was too much, guys. But let's read. I have two synopses. The first one, Game of Thrones, is an adaptation of A Song of Ice and Fire, a series of fantasy novels by George R. R. Martin. Shame on you. Of which the first is Game of Thrones, set on the fictional continents of Westeros and Essos. Game of Thrones has a large ensemble cast and follows several story arcs throughout the course of the show. The first major arc concerns the Iron Throne and the Seven Kingdoms of Westeros through a web of political conflicts among the noble families, either vying to claim the throne or fighting for independence from whoever sits on it. Dun dun dun. I'm sure you guys have watched it. I'm not even hyping it up. The second focuses on the last descendants of the realms, the disposed ruling dynasty who has been exiled to Essos and is plotting to return and reclaim the throne. You already know who that is.
Yeah.
Stormborn, that girl. And the third follows the Night's Watch, a military order defending the realm against threats from beyond Westeros' northern border. That's all encompassing.
Yeah.
All right, the second one, which is a little more broken down, which I appreciate, is basically 9 noble families fighting for control of the land of Westeros while an ancient enemy returns from being dormant for a millennia. We already know who that is. It should have. The what?
Oh, you mean that one? My bad. King.
Oh. In the mythical continent of Westeros, several powerful families fight for control for the Seven Kingdoms. As conflict erupts in the kingdoms of men, an ancient enemy rises once again to threaten them all. Meanwhile, the last heirs of a recently usurped dynasty plot to take back their homeland from across the narrow sea.
Oh, man.
I don't know. You just watched it for the umpteenth time. I don't know why you're going through that. Like, what do you think of this latest rewatch?
Okay, so I feel like maybe for me, enough time has passed that this rewatch, which, like I said, was probably my third or my fourth, felt a little bit different than the other times. I think the other times I was still upset. I was still like, why, just not understanding. This time, though, I feel like I was able to grasp things a little bit better, where it kind of made sense. Some of it, not all of it, some of it made sense in the end as far as how things went down. But I mean, it's my favorite show, like one of my favorite shows ever. So, I mean, I still love it. Like, if we're gonna break this down by like from the very beginning, like, so especially given that I just most recently rewatched it, that first season compared to this last one is like a whole nother show. Like, it's not even, what we first started watching. Yeah. And so I think that, like, one of the reasons why I always go back to it is just because it was so different, right? Like, from its time, we thought House Stark, which is one of the 9 noble families, was going to prevail, and Ned Stark was going to be like the hero or whatever, but we obviously learned, like, before the season even ended, that we were wrong. And so I appreciated, even though I hated it the first time around, but I appreciated now the way that everything happened and how it set in motion everything else, because these families, had been fighting, but not really. Like, it was all very, like, fake pleasantries and all that stuff. They didn't like each other. But the moment that King Robert died, right? That's the first king we start with. And then by the end of the show, we've gone through I don't know how many kings and queens. But the first king that we start with is King Robert. So the moment King Robert dies, all hell breaks loose. And his family, meaning his wife and children, of course, try to take over. Whereas Ned Stark, knowing the truth about who his kids are that are not really his kids, wants to try and make things right. Because for whatever reason, the men of House Stark feel like they've got to be the hero, the noble man, the one who is always the truth teller. Y'all need to learn how to lie. Anyway. Well, I mean, if you realize, especially
Well, he did keep the biggest secret of like the whole Game of Thrones.
that is
Like,
true. Yeah, you're right. I'll give him that one. I'll give
he
him.
hasn't stayed, like, he has an asterisk next to his name because
Yeah,
he was the truth teller.
yeah.
And oh, you had a love
He's also
child?
the ultimate secret keeper. So yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. That's a little bit weird. But what I'm saying is, like, I feel like the Stark men just always fumbled the bag, whereas the Stark women, they were about it. Like they did what they had to do, and so
I think all the women, to be
well,
honest.
yes, and that was the other thing too, is that especially that first season, it was all about the men, right? Like, obviously, Queen Cersei was like,
Say that again?
she was Queen Cersei at the time when she was
Mhm.
married to Robert. She had her little sneaky like ways and everything, but she didn't become like, a major player until the very end of that season. But then it's like, even still going into the second season, right? King Joffrey comes along, her son, and he like keeps trying to trump her, and her father basically also has no respect for her. Like, nobody she's a females, of course, in this world, like in real world, don't get the respect they deserve. So anyway, then of course you have Rob trying to fight the battle because of what they did to his dad and everything. He's named King of the North, but then he goes and he messes things up because he just had to go and like break, an oath or whatever. His mom tries to fix things. She only like made things worse. And then you have like all the way on the other side of the sea, Daenerys, who like initially that first season was kind of a child bride, was very like meek and, just small, until of course she births essentially 3 dragons, and then from season 2 forward she was like nonstop elevating, right?
The
So
breaker of chains.
the breaker of chains. So these women, like, it's like they go through, and it's kind of like sucky, but it's like they go through all of these issues to come, like, Arya had to like play a boy for a long time. Arya Stark, she had to play a boy for a long time to try and like make it right, because she escaped King's Landing. Then Sansa Stark stayed in King's Landing and was brutalized and tortured by Joffrey and by just
Ramsay
everybody.
dealing with Littlefinger,
I know.
just all the psychos basically, and she
All,
still kept sane within that chaos. That's admirable.
and that's something that I feel like my first time watching the show years and years ago, and then my first rewatch, I didn't appreciate that. Now I appreciate the different strengths, right? Like, both Arya and Sansa Stark made it. They made it in different ways. And I think there's a scene towards the end of the show, the end of the series, where they kind of say to one another, I would have never survived what you did. And I feel like that's very true, given like who their characters were and all that. It's that they really weren't able, I don't think they would have been able to do the things that the other had to do. So I don't know how I feel like this GOT review of ours is going to become more about the women, and I'm fine with that. But, you know, and then of course, going back to Daenerys, like, bro, it's crazy because of course I'm rooting for her, right? Like, oh, she's killing people, but like, really is the bad people because they're the slave masters. So yeah, that's good. And then it's like, oh, she's killing the noblemen of Marine, but because they were also bad people, so that's
Let
good.
the House of On dying,
Oh
like
my
there.
god, that was season 2, I think, that she went to the House of
That
Night.
was a scary ass house. I couldn't sleep for days. I know.
Oh,
Calm
that
down,
was
was
creepy.
it
That
is.
was so creepy. But like, she I feel also kind of kept building up herself. And one of the things that somebody said, I can't remember which character said it towards the end of the series, it's like she is a girl who walked into the fire with 3 stones and came out with 3 dragons, like unburnt, untouched. It's like if that were you, you would believe in your destiny too. It's like, okay. And so then that also helped me to understand a little bit more how she became basically the Mad Queen, because it's like she was so sure that what she was doing was right and that nobody else was correct other than her, that naturally whatever decision she made, whether it was bad, she would never think it was bad because she would think it's all part of her destiny. It's all part of her plan. So even when at the end, when she's like, talking to the Unsullied and the Dothraki after she's, of course, burned down King's Landing, she like seemed like she was so proud of herself. Like she didn't just murder thousands of innocent people, including children. It all just was casualty of war. Like she seemed so certain that she had no remorse, none of it. In all of it, she was still believing that she was doing the right thing, that she was making the world a better place. And it's like, I get it now that she was so far gone, believing her own myth, right? She was Misa, right? The breaker of chains. She was like all these different things. Like she, do you remember how she killed the Dothraki leaders in that
Wasn't
one
it
scene?
the dragon?
No, she didn't even have the dragons. They had kidnapped her. Like
Uh,
this was like way later on when it was another group of Dothraki men, and they find out that she tells them that she was the wife of Khal Drogo. So because she is technically a widow, she should be at this other place with all the other widows. So when they take her back there, like she's of course being defiant as she normally is. So the men who were the leaders of the Dothraki, they all were in this like kind of like a hut, like a giant hut. And she tells them how she had been there once before when, remember the scene where she ate the heart
mhm.
when she was like pregnant. Okay, so she was like back in that room, but it was like all of the Dothraki men who were the leaders of their tribes. And they're basically like, okay, if you don't want to be with the widows, then we're just going to take our turns basically assaulting you and doing all these things. And she essentially tells them like, you're not going to do any of that. And then basically she tells them how she's a better leader than they would ever be, and she tosses like the fire that was in like these things, like these, not urns, but anyway, she tosses the fire, everything starts to burn, and she's the
Except
only one
for
that comes out alive.
yeah.
So again, once again, she makes it out of the fire. She kills all of these Dothraki leaders. She now has the people of, all the Dothraki people on their knees because it's like, did she really just walk out of there like untouched? So again, she believes this mythology about herself because it's kind of continued to happen for her, right? Like she's been making everything happen and surviving and getting out of these situations. She rides her dragon, like she literally flies, and then she like goes and she helps the North to kill the dead. So it's like she believes in her own mythology. And so I can see
She
that.
also believes in that that's her rightful she's the rightful heir to
Yeah.
that throne that was taken from her. So
Yeah.
it's not all methodical. It's like this is mine and I'm gonna get what I deserve. So everything that happened in King's Landing, I I would do the same thing Daenerys did at this point.
And this is
Cersei was never gonna back down. there had to be casualties of war. So
Yes,
she's like right there at the edge of the line, like about to cross. Nothing is stopping me at this point. I don't know if that's very telling about me, guys, but at this point, nobody's stopping me. She's been through literally how many, not cities, but how many
like areas and towns.
areas and taking over
Yeah,
and building this army. You think little old Cersei, well, compared to her amassed, military,
army and dragon and everything. Yeah.
is gonna stop me? Hell no. So that's why I'm like so upset, I guess, at the way she died, because it just took us through this whole journey of her growing the dragons, conquering all these lands, people respecting her. You almost like cheer her on. It's like, oh, you're finally here.
Yeah.
To not be able to sit on the throne. If we really think about it, Cersei was the only one that really sat on the throne,
Yes.
if I'm not mistaken. Because
The only,
Sansa got a consolation prize being Queen of the North.
I didn't want to
Which
apologize,
she,
but yeah.
I mean, which is very deserving for her because she did want to be queen. So there's no more Iron Throne. She gets to be Queen of the North.
Well, yeah, that's because Jogon literally burnt that thing to the ground. Like,
What was he supposed to do?
if my girl can't have it, nobody can have it. That's exactly what Jogon said. But no, like, okay, I get your point. I do. But they rang the bells. They opened the gates. The people had surrendered. She didn't have to kill them.
I mean, this is foreign land, though. Like, you don't know these people's intentions.
Tyrion, her hand told her, if you hear the bells, they've surrendered. He repeated it multiple times.
Daenerys, you're not helping me here.
So this is
I
this.
mean, this goes back to her genetics also. She's a little cuckoo. The myth. She feels entitled, and she a little crazy because of her daddy.
That's true.
So
This is true. And then, one of the whole things también was that she wanted to break the wheel, right? Like that was her whole thing. So in a way, despite the fact that she died, she did essentially break the wheel, right? Because at the end, they made it so that no longer would there be heirs to the throne. They would be chosen. So that was a departure and in essence a legacy of hers, right? Despite what she did, she still succeeded in essentially taking back the Iron Throne, and then of course, it was gone. But breaking that wheel and making it so that things were not the norm anymore, as it had been for so long in King's Landing. So I think she still ended up, succeeding in some way. It's just that she had to go.
I mean,
And
she did. I just wish she would have died in a more, I guess, honorable way. She's been through all these wars and things, and maybe the honorable way, it would have been a different ending.
yeah,
Maybe die with Cersei or whatever.
yeah.
But it's just a stab from Jon Snow, like, and
Well,
and I don't like the love aspect of it. Also, not because it's all ancestral, but it's just it's kind of like tapping into, let's say, something that makes women weak,
yeah.
emotion. So, she liked her nephew.
I see what you mean.
Yeah, she liked her nephew. I'm gonna say liked. They've reached this place, he knows that she's a little cuckoo cachoo,
Yeah,
and then somebody that she trusted or loved, did that to her after everything that she's been through, like seen all these massacres, and again took over so many things, had this huge following, finally gets the throne, and then she dies in such a, I'm gonna say, simple way, or something that is considered weak of women. Like, that's the
yeah,
part I guess I didn't like. Fine, she had to die, but I wish she would have died in another way,
I can see that. Yeah, no, definitely. But okay, but it could only be June. Daenerys had a dragon, a whole ass dragon. Who was going to come for her? Like, who could get close enough to her? Because Drogon was right around the corner. Like, he was not.
And Tyrion.
No, because she had already lost her trust in him after she declared that he betrayed her
Oh,
because he let Jamie go. So, and then one of the things I also noticed right prior to John doing this is when she, like I told you earlier, when she was like talking to her masses, I also noticed that everybody that she started with was gone, right? Like her brother
ascending.
obviously, yeah, well, going way, way back. Like her
Mhm.
brother had to be gone from way back in the day. Sir Jorah died for her.
Oh, I love it. So
R.I.P.
Jorah
to
is one of
Jorah.
my favorite characters.
R.I.P. Now he was the definition of ride or die, but
Well,
that's
so was Ned Stark. He died for his
yeah,
cause. He was not gonna let it go.
that's true.
So,
That's true. Yeah. So yeah, and then like I
being
said,
honorable doesn't get you anywhere. That's what it's basically telling me.
I mean, and then, well, like you said, she lost Missandei when, of course, Cersei beheaded her. And then like Dario Naharis, who was a guy that she was not in love with, but she, was cool with him, liked him and everything, was not there. He was in Marine. And then all she was left with was Grey
He was
Worm.
kind of trying to take over, if I remember correctly. He wanted to
Oh, I don't think so. He wanted to be
he,
with her.
he did, but I don't know. I felt sneaky vibes from him. I felt like if he could, he would have been like, move aside, girl.
I don't know. I feel like he was like definitely like not on the level of Sajora, but he was like ride or die for her. Like,
Hmm.
but yeah, so then she's left with Grey Worm, who's a psycho at this point because he lost Missandei as well. So he's like full blown psychotic. And so she's like alone, right? And like she's back in the land of her family or where her family last, reigned, and she's got nobody other than John. So John is like literally the only person. But at the same time, she's psycho. And John is not only the person that she loves, but John is the person that can threaten her, you know, right to the throne or whatever. So that was something that, like, to me, is one of the things that I feel like I understood at this point. It's like, okay, like it had to go down that way because, like, who else was gonna do it? So it sucks that, like, I really thought she was gonna be queen. Like, I really, really thought, like, she was gonna be good. And then she just, I don't know.
Well, that's another plot twist from George R. R. Martin. He just can't let us be great.
Well, yeah, yes. However, we don't know if this is what his ending would be because he hasn't finished the final book. So,
Hallelujah.
so this was the creators, D&D. They spoke with him obviously at length about what they were going to have, like their version as the ending. I mean, obviously, I think he went along with it, but that's not what he wrote. Like, because nobody knows what he's written for the ending, so we don't know how A Song of Ice and Fire really ends. But what I'm most upset about is why John didn't become king. Like, he would have been great at it.
He
He
just
would
likes
have.
being a bastard. He likes being an outcast. He likes people pitying him at this point. He thinks he's all righteous and, you
Yeah,
know, what is it, self-deprecating? Like, it's just
yeah,
very, I'm like,
yeah.
John, come on. You, everybody deems you a leader. Like, come on now.
Right.
Like in the Night's Watch, he was the leader till he wasn't. Then he came back from the dead. He kind of became one. Every
Yeah,
time he wanted to fight somebody on his own, he had a following. Sansa came to save him that one time. Oh, the Battle of the Bastards, right? Yeah, with Ramsay. The Wildlings, when there was that
yeah.
first threat, I think, with the Nightwalkers.
Well, yeah, yeah. There was the situation at Hardhome. But prior to that, they'd had
Mhm.
the battle against the Wildlings when they were in Castle Black and all that, and John was pretty much like leading things, which is when his first love died in his arms. You know
So
nothing.
we have like men that are very pro war, this is mine. And then we have
Yeah,
Jon Snow who's like, I.
Like,
So I think he's a disappointing character because he had so much potential
yes. Yeah,
and he just wasted it. Like how does he get banished? I'm really trying to remember everything I seen years ago. How did he just get banished back to the Night's Watch?
because that was the only thing that Grey Worm would accept.
Who
Like,
is Grey Worm?
well, he was about ready to start another war because he
No,
just,
we already in the thick of it. We might as well go through it.
I mean, that's
Oh
my,
yeah.
but and this is the controversial part that I think most people were not so thrilled about.
Hmm.
King Bran the Broken.
No, I still can't talk about it because he was missing for like a season and a half.
He was.
He was sleeping for at least 3 seasons. Like, then he become what extraordinary thing did he do that he saw as a three-eyed raven that like deemed him
Worthy.
what worthy enough to be this? After everything everybody's been through, I would have preferred Littlefinger. He's the one that started all this crap.
No, you didn't.
Listen, he's the one who started all this crap with everybody, right?
Yeah.
Stirring up the pot with, basically all the houses
Yeah.
till, he got chopped by Arya.
That's my
But
girl.
nobody really knew or like that he was behind all these things. So for him to get the throne in the end in a sneaky way, not ideally, I really don't want him to get the throne, but it just would have been like another plot twist
Yeah.
that he would have gotten it. It's like, oh, I kind of didn't have to do all the work. They did it for me. Haha, I got the throne.
Okay. Okay. Now I know you're going to be like, nope, still no. But okay.
No, I already said it. Go ahead.
Anywho, so if, like I mentioned earlier, we want to at least have the legacy of Daenerys Targaryen, first of her name, where she breaks the wheel, if you're going to do that where like there's not going to be no longer heirs, but they're just going to be, people chosen, then it makes sense to start with someone who cannot have heirs because Bran was not going to be able to father any children. And so that's one of like the logical things I can think of when it comes to that because yes, for years I was like, Bran the Broken, what? But today, when I was listening, really listening to what Tyrion was saying, and I'm gonna say a little tidbit about Tyrion here in a second. But anyway, when I was listening to him and he was saying, like, even turning to Grey Worm, and he said, "This is our queen's, like, this is what our queen wanted as far as like breaking the wheel." That means that, like, with this choice, you're essentially doing that because now there's going to be people that are going to be chosen, right? To become the next ruler of the realm. And it's not going to be somebody by birthright. And so then, at the very least, this is how it ends and things are fine. Because had it ended with, let's say, Sansa becoming queen, Sansa would have, like, I don't think she would have turned into Cersei, but I think Sansa would have enjoyed the power a little bit too much to let go.
I think she would have been a little Cersei, a little Daenerys. She has it in her, especially after everything she's been through.
Yes, definitely.
How is she more cutthroat than Jon Snow?
God, let's not talk about that part again. It pisses me off. But okay, so if it had been her, we know at least she possibly could have gone in a not so great direction. If it would have been any of the other lords and ladies that were at that little gathering, same thing. It's like they would have had a taste for power and wouldn't want to let go, and it would just be like if they become king or queen, then they would decide, well, yeah, we're gonna reinstate the heir rule, and my heir will be the one that's next. So in essence, it's like let's keep the peace for as long as we can by not having that be the case, right? And so then it's like it helps to keep peace for however long Bran is alive.
Mhm.
and then it's like if things go south later on, then, whatever. But at the very least, after years and years of war and battle and, death and everything, there's going to be peace in the realm, at least for, like I said, however long Bran is alive. So in that regard, I get it.
But it also seems like we started off, I think the show started with the Starks, right?
Mhm.
The Starks and the Baratheons. But mainly, first season, get to know the Starks,
Yeah.
Ned, all that stuff. It seems like Bran was just a plug, like he just fit in at this. Hey, we can't make Sansa because Sansa's going to be Queen of the North. Arya is basically,
Dora the
a
Explorer.
Magellan, Christopher Columbus, whatever
Dora,
other explorer there
Carmen
is.
Diego, all of them.
She's all that, so she doesn't fit. John, he killed Daenerys. We know he can't handle the throne. He's gonna be banished anyway. So then it just feels like they just plug Bran in.
Okay, I can see that. Yes. But Bran became the three-eyed raven, and I'm still a little bit confused on the three-eyed raven, but I do know that the three-eyed raven knows all the stories, has all the information of the past, and so, there is some truth to the fact of, at the very least, Bran can, based on the fact that he knows history better than anybody else, can keep it from repeating itself in some ways. And I know that he was just like somebody that just was not really noticeable or whatever. But like if you go back all the way to the first season, Bran wanted to be so badly like his father, like his big brothers, like he wanted to eventually one day be a knight or a lord or whatever, but I think mostly he wanted to be like a knight. I remember something about that. But then what happens within the very first episode? He's tossed from the window by a Lannister because of a Lannister, and that sets in motion what his life becomes and how things like basically play out for him. I think that, and it's one of the things I was considering earlier. It's like, okay, he was basically the boy who would become king, and we didn't know it, right? And he had his journey, like that he went through. That yes, of course, he was gone for like one entire season, but like there's so much that he did, and if you remember, so many people died protecting him. So many people like did what
Oh,
they could to help him. I'm still upset anytime I hear Hodor. I really
that was tragic.
do. So tragic. So, he already had, similar to John, about how like people follow him, people, listen to him and all that stuff. Like Bran had people trying to help him. Bran had people, trying to like do these things for him, to die for him. Like he was essentially like a minor version of what like John was, what his father was, what Rob was, his brother Rob, and even a little bit of what his sisters were. But we didn't really like pay too much attention to him because his story wasn't so central. But it's like, yeah, he went through all these things. He went beyond the wall, and not once were they like attacked by the dead until they got to where the three-eyed raven was. They even got kidnapped by the mutineers from the Night's Watch, and like essentially because he warged into Hodor, like saved them. And still, so like I said, it's kind of like like a micro version of what his family members' lives were, and he survived a lot, despite the fact that he, was disabled, could not walk. And so like he, I think, had his journey to eventually embrace the power that he was born with, which is the warging, and then eventually to become the three-eyed raven. So it's like he literally was meant to become more than what he was, and so like his journey wasn't so focal to most things, but it's like if it wasn't for Bran, so much would not have happened, right? Because you have Catelyn Stark, who literally went to King's Landing because she thought that somebody had somebody from King's Landing had hired somebody to kill her son, right? And then that set off a whole chain of events. She ended up kidnapping Tyrion because she thought it was Tyrion who had, hired somebody to kill Bran, and then that whole situation led to Jaime like stabbing. Well, he didn't stab him. One of Jaime's people stabbed Ned Stark in the leg, and that whole bloody fight happened. And it was just like a whole thing that went off like in motion. So if you really think about it, there are a lot of elements of Bran's story that set other things off. Like you mentioned earlier, yes, Littlefinger definitely was at the beginning of everything. He kicked it all off. But a lot of the situations with Bran also kind of, made it so that other things can happen. The fact that the Night King like touched Bran, that was how they were able to tell where he was. And at that moment, Bran was marked and he'd be able to reach him, basically like anywhere. Um, and it kind of like, it just kind of like, to me, also set off like all these other things. The Night King wouldn't have been killed if he hadn't been going for Bran, and then because Arya did kill him, then obviously that helped to end that war because the dead were going to win. Like watching that whole scene again, like that whole episode, ain't no way those people was gonna live. No way. The dead just kept coming back.
Yeah.
I mean, and then he just was like rising them up again. I'm like, oh, ay Dios. It never ends.
I feel.
It never ends. So yeah, so it was like, in different ways, I think every character or almost every character like had a role to play into what was going to happen and how things would become. So now, while I still think it should have been John, I can understand that it's Bran the Broken who became king.
Of course, I'm gonna crack a joke. That's me. But if the creators wanted a historian, they should have just said so. It didn't have to be Bran, but that's the end of it. I don't know your explanation. I feel like I actually want to watch it.
Yeah.
Things in a different lens because I feel like when we watched it, I don't want to say we had an immature, or I can speak for myself. I don't want to say I had an immature approach or of different situations.
Yeah.
But now, as I'm older, I think and rethinking about Game of Thrones and how it's applicable to life right now, it has like a different
connotation.
Yeah. So
yeah,
I might watch it. I can't guarantee it though, because just imagine like going through the Red Wedding again.
I did not. So okay, no.
Reigns against Demir. What was it? I don't remember the episode. The one where Stannis burns his daughter. Hodor dying. I don't know why that made me so sad.
I cried all over again. So the Red Wedding, I only watched up until a certain point, and then I like started doing chores or something. I don't know. I didn't want to see that. I really didn't. Like, I think I've rewatched, like I said, maybe 3 or 4 times, and only once have I rewatched the Red Wedding. I can't. Like, I just cannot. I couldn't watch Stannis burning his daughter. I couldn't. I could not. I turned away. And Hodor, I watched as much as I could until I just was like sobbing all over again. Like I can't. It was so tragic and like
it was.
Yeah. Anyway, so
Sir Jorah dying. Oh my God, that was. He did like a minor, or maybe she was of age at that point, but
but she was
the love was palpable. You know how he would just like do anything for this girl. Like it's
Khaleesi.
Khaleesi. I forgot he called her that. I think it's I don't know, sweet in a weird, 50s to 17-year-old kind of way. But I'm talking about the love, not the age gap, guys. But I guess let's talk about I guess we got to talk about Cersei. We got to talk about Sansa, and I don't know who else at this point.
Well, Arya.
We'll go on for hours, but you guys aren't going to go on for hours.
I guess the only other thing I'll say, like when it comes to like Arya, I really loved her relationship with the Hound, especially at the end, because I feel like he she was so hell bent on killing Cersei at the end. Like, so hell bent.
Now that's a girl on a mission. She just kept reciting, I forgot the names
The
at this
list,
point.
yeah,
It
Ilyn
was
Payne, King
really
Joffrey, Tywin Lannister, Cersei Lannister.
check, check, like
Yeah.
she was on a mission and I loved it.
I should
She
have
was
my mug with me. I have a mug that has the whole list.
I'll look it up while you talk.
But yeah, no, she definitely was on a mission. And it's interesting because, okay, so I feel like two men who were in essence like helpful to her. One of them being what's his name? Beric Dondarrion, who was the guy that was always being brought back to life too after he was killed. I think he's the one who gave her the idea for the names. And so anyway, oh no, you know what? I'm sorry. It wasn't Beric. It was the guy who from the Ninth Watch who helped her escape King's Landing after what happened to Ned. He's the one who, like, told her, "You're a boy now. Call yourself Arya, whatever." And because she couldn't sleep, he gave her the idea about naming, the people or whatever. So anyway, there's that. And then one of the people on her list was Sandor Clegane, who's known as the Hound. And for her to eventually have this sort of kind of like a father-daughter relationship with him in the worst way possible. It was interesting, and this time around, like I found it like a little bit more endearing. And but he's also the one, because he was on a mission as well to kill his brother, the Mountain, at the end. He's the reason why she was able to survive for so long. And then she also survived her revenge list. Like, she was so consumed by that. And
Hmm.
he told her, like, if you come with me, you will die. Like, basically, like, don't become like me. And then at the end, she tells him thank you. And it's kind of like she's been relieved, like just completely relieved and released of like her, whatever her obsession was with her kill list. And now it was like, okay, she can move on with her life. So of course we know, like we mentioned earlier, she ended up becoming Dora the Explorer, and what Buster what
So
was.
it's Beric, Dondarrion, Joffrey, Melisandre, I guess you wanted to
Yeah,
kill.
she didn't like her because she took Gendry.
Oh yeah, Gendry was another one, but we ain't gonna. He. I can't. Tywin, Walder Frey, of course, that's the person that killed the whole fam.
Right.
Cersei, Polliver, Ilyn Payne, Thoros Amir, Gregor Clegane, Sandor, well, she had a list. I'm not even gonna finish it.
Did a whole list. Yeah. And she
But when she killed the Frey,
I love her. I just love her. Loved her.
yeah. What was that
So,
quote? Did she say a quote? It's like when you leave one behind. Wait,
oh yeah,
when the lone wolf
when the
survives.
if you yeah, it's like if you don't, like, basically don't kill the whole pack, the lone wolf survives, or something like that. Um
That was so sweet.
oh yeah. I was so happy. Like, so happy. But now going to her sister, Sansa. That girl just wanted to be queen. Her whole life, that's what she wanted. She wanted to be queen. And granted, spoiler, as we've already been spoiling everything, she did become queen. Queen in the North, not queen in the Seven Realms, but whatever. She became queen. But her journey to becoming queen was horrible. Like, horrible. Especially
Hmm.
when she got to her second marriage, which was with Ramsay Bolton. And, well, the assault and all that stuff.
Wait, was Tyrion before or after?
Tyrion was before. She got
Well, that's her third.
no, her first
It
marriage
was
was to Tyrion.
Joffrey.
She didn't marry Joffrey. She was engaged to Joffrey, or
Um,
promised to Joffrey. But Joffrey said he was going to follow his heart and marry Marjorie. Anyway, so that's when he decided, or I don't know if it was him or Tywin. It might have been Tywin who decided that she should marry Tyrion instead. That way, a Lannister would be, Lord of Winterfell or whatever. Anyway, so her second marriage was the worst, of course. and she went through a lot. And it was Littlefinger who helped her escape King's Landing and the Lannisters, but then gave her to the Boltons, which, is how she ended up marrying Ramsay. And if it wasn't for Theon Greyjoy, she wouldn't have, survived over there. Like, he helped her escape. So yeah, she went through quite a bit. And I feel like once she did escape, that girl just wanted revenge. Like, and I get it. Hey, everything she went through, she deserves her little piece of justice and revenge. She may not have had a kill list, but she at least was trying to survive and to make sure that like her people made it one way or another. And it's thanks to her that John won the Battle of the Bastards, because let's face it, he was going to lose. So yeah, I think Sansa came out to be like a whole lot smarter than people gave her credit for, I think. Cause
It's so sad that she had to grow up like so fast.
yeah,
Her whole family died, and then she
yeah,
had to survive, but still achieve her goals in some way. I don't think she knew it
yeah,
was going to go down like this,
yeah,
but she navigated the best way she could in her circumstance. And
yeah.
I guess everybody else did. Now that we're talking about it, Bran with
Right.
his journey, Arya with her journey, because everything that she went through prepared her to kill the Night King.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's very true. I mean, there was a scene that Sansa had with the Hound towards the end here, after they won that battle against the dead and everything, where he calls her, he says to her like, "You're different, little bird," because remember they used to call her Little Bird.
Right.
And so he tells her, "You're different, little bird," and then she says, basically like, "Yeah, whatever," and then he tells her, he's like, "If you had left with me, you wouldn't have gone through everything you went through, not with Littlefinger or the Boltons or whatever." And she tells him, "If I had left with you, I wouldn't be basically the person I am today." And I think that was a very telling, like, point, because yeah, like, she probably would have still been that little bird, and she probably would have still been in situations that she wouldn't have been,
Save
yeah, that she wouldn't have been able to survive. And I love that her sworn protector is Brienne of Tarth, and that she has like wholeheartedly trusted her. And I love that Brienne did everything she could to find, Catelyn Stark's daughters and to protect them and help them when she could. So Sansa's journey, I think I appreciate it more, like a whole lot more now than I did back then. And I'm glad that, she got what she wanted in the end. In one, way or another, she got what she wanted.
I guess quick shout out to some character evolutions. Now that you said Brienne of Tarth,
Yeah.
Jaime Lannister was one that I didn't see that coming.
No.
Theon
Right.
was like, I was actually sad when he died at the end.
Yeah.
It was like a roller coaster of like, I can't stand you. I feel sorry for you. I'm like, I kind of like you. I'm like, oh, you're kind of honorable. I'm like,
Yeah.
he did such a phenomenal job,
Yeah.
like
He
taking you through
did.
that whole roller coaster.
Yeah. I think what made me sad was when he showed up and told Sansa he wanted to fight for her, and like the way she ran to him, and she was kind of like tearing up, and I felt like emotional, like with that part, because it's like he could have gone back with his sister and gone back to the Iron Islands, to his home, but Winterfell was
But
his
that was
home.
his family.
And
Yeah.
the Starks were his family, and so then when he died, Sansa put a Stark pin on him, next to like his suit, which was the Ironborn suit or whatever. She put the Stark pin on him, and I was like, oh, that made me a little bit sad. I was like, dang, that sucks. Because yeah, he essentially, like, he kind of, what's that word? It's like he oh my god, when you like make up
Evolved.
for, yeah, but when you vindicated him,
Redeemed.
redeemed, that's the one. He
Mhm.
redeemed himself,
He did.
protecting Bran and everything. and helping Sansa and all that. So yeah, that was a good character evolution for him. That was good.
And then Jamie falling in love with Brienne at the end, and it was like one of those Romeo and Juliet kind of thing. So he started off with like, messing with his sister,
Mhm.
having three kids,
Uh,
Lannisters, but they act like Baratheons,
yeah,
to, kind of saving Tyrion from Tywin. I
yeah,
remember that one time.
yeah,
And then, it's kind of like he had a conscience
yeah,
afterward.
yeah. I think I think he definitely like did evolve, in some ways. Um, but he was the dumbest Lannister that there was, though. Because he got himself captured by Robb and his forces.
Like twice, I think, right?
Girl, I don't know how many. Yeah, probably. Like I don't know how many. Then he got himself captured by Daenerys' forces. When he was trying to come after he was with Brienne, he left her because he knew Cersei was going to die. So he went back to Cersei, and then he got captured. And then Tyrion had to let him out. And then he went and was going to save Cersei, but they couldn't be saved, and they died together. So, like,
How poetic is that? Aren't they twins?
yeah,
They come into the world together and then they die together.
together, yeah. And like the whole incestuous stuff aside, um, I really was upset that they made Brienne kind of beg him to stay with her, because it just kind of seemed counter to like who she was, um, and then
I guess
I
she
hated
up.
that. Yeah, and then I hated that he seemed like he was going to be happy with Brienne, but he still went back to her, to his sister, um, Cersei. But I think ultimately it's like what he said to Brienne, it's like he has done all of these hateful things for Cersei to get back to Cersei. He cannot escape her, I think, and it's like as much as he would love to have his own happiness, he cannot do that with the possibility of Cersei dying. It's like everything in him still compels him to go to Cersei. So
Hmm.
like I get it now, but at the time I was like, why would they do that? Like why would they have a whole redeeming arc for him, an evolution for him, only for him to go back to that girl? But
Loyalty. There's loyalty. That's my sister. I guess that's my lover, mother
yeah,
of my children. We've been through everything.
yeah,
Like, how can you, break from that, I guess,
yeah,
besides the ancestral stuff, just
right.
like the other forces, let's say.
Yeah, yeah. And so, I kind of get that now, like after this rewatch. And I guess we can save the best for last now. Miss Cersei. Queen
Love
Cersei.
Queen Cersei.
I know you love her. I know you love her. You start. You go ahead.
Cersei, I mean, I think we tapped a little into it. She's just been through everything a lot. Like
Yeah.
all the men just basically never listened to her. Robert basically didn't respect her, Robert Baratheon.
No.
Her
Her first
dad
one.
was like, basically, move aside. I'm the one doing all the business dealings and all the strategic moves. Her
Right.
kids didn't respect her either,
No.
you know, and it's just something like basically that we deal with society, kind of women are
Yeah.
overlooked for some things. So when she was just like, "Oh, my third kid gone, F it," I'm like, I could do what I want.
Yeah.
She sat in that throne. She's the only one that did, if I recall correctly.
Well, her kids did, but
I mean,
Daenerys,
but as a woman character,
yeah.
that it
Yeah.
wasn't the rightful heir kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. You're
She
right.
accomplished what everybody else was trying to do,
That's true.
and
That's
no, and
true.
nobody's is really giving her kudos for that.
That's true. You're right. She took it. She
She
took it. Cause ain't nobody was gonna stop her from getting what she wanted. So you're right. She took that. God dang it.
She, I mean, she had, plans. When people tried her, like with the shame thing, she's like, I'm gonna get you back. She blew up that what was it? Not a cathedral.
Septa
What was it called?
Baylor. It was like a church, the Septa Baylor.
With all her enemies in it, with that green
Well,
stuff. What is it called?
it was
I'm gonna call it fireworks, whatever.
It
I
was,
forgot.
yeah, it was some kind of fire. I can't remember what it is, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, that green fire
yeah,
with Marjorie in it, who tried her ass,
she did.
with basically everybody that was in that trying her while she was shaming down
Yeah, that's
ending.
true. Yeah.
And then
Oh
she just saw
my God.
it from the window. Be
She was
like that was so epic. Like
she was chilling. Yeah.
they'd be like, yeah, my enemies get what they deserve,
She
and
sure
I
did.
love that for her.
Wildfire. Had to look it up. It was gonna drive me crazy. Wildfire. Yeah.
They got what they deserved, and I'm happy.
Yeah.
She's not, you know, the character with the best reputation, but sometimes I feel like she had like redeeming qualities. Like people didn't understand her, kind of thing.
I think she
You
was
know,
heavily underestimated, like by everybody.
and that's why she succeeded almost to the end till
Yeah.
shit went awry, basically.
Basically. Yeah, because she literally was in every single episode, well, almost every single episode up
Mhm.
until the very last one. But
But she's another kind of crazy. I
yeah,
think her and Daenerys kind of mirror each other if we really think about it, because Cersei was equally as ruthless, or she could be.
right.
Hello, I mean, she just didn't have this massive following that Daenerys did, and she was all the way in Essos trying to make it to King's Landing for like basically 7 seasons.
Yeah.
Cersei was already there, and she was really willing to like throw down with Daenerys
Yeah,
when
that's
she
true.
got there. So the women are the unsung heroes here, or the heroes, I should say.
The women are pretty much the ones who ran the world in Game of Thrones, essentially. I think Cersei, I feel like, again, and maybe it's like you said, how, obviously, like, not necessarily like an immature mind, but like when I first watched it, like I had a different mentality, I guess, to now where I kind of, I'm older, different perspective, and I kind of can see, like, yeah, okay, I get why she would do that. I mean, I may not agree with it, but I get it. And so that's kind of like where I was for most of the series this time around. I was like, dang, Cersei girl, you might be onto something. I don't know. You
But
might be
they
cool.
kind of started her off maybe similar to Sansa, where she was like a weakling. She
Yeah,
was a wife. She
yeah,
was a mother. We
yeah.
know that she loves her kids through and through. Those little
Right.
inbreds, right? She loves them. But, after I guess everything was removed,
Yeah.
then it's like kind of that made her stronger almost, and
Yeah.
allowed her to voice her opinions. Like Tywin wasn't there anymore.
Right.
Basically, she had Jamie wrapped around her finger. He was a non-factor. Tyrion was gone.
Yeah.
All her kids are dead, basically.
Yeah.
What else does she have? She has her wanting power and her revenge that she was seeking, or
Yeah.
keeping the claim to the throne. So that's
Exactly.
where we really saw her like true power. Again, they were trying to minimize her character because she's a wife, she's a mom,
Yeah.
you know, just overlook her, like you said.
And at the end, she was a queen. Like,
She
she
was the only
literally
one that
was
did
the
that.
queen. She started as the queen and she pretty much ended as the queen. Like, even when her sons were on the throne, she was technically still queen regent, queen mother, whatever. She was still the real power, aside from Tywin, of course. She still had her power, some of it. And so, yeah, I think at the end of it, Cersei did a
Yeah,
whole
she
lot.
was queen.
Yeah,
Queen when Robert Baratheon was in the throne, queen regent when the kids were there,
yeah.
queen of the seven realms when they all died.
When she took it, yep.
Cersei, I love you, girl. I'm House Lannister for life. You
Oh
know,
my gosh.
I think actually the Starks have kind of won my heart in recent years. So they're a second, maybe a close first, but Lannisters all the way.
Nope. House Stark all the way over here, bro. House Stark, always. Well, I think that pretty much wraps it up. Like, whew, the women, really, the women just
The
killed the
women.
show, like, in the best way possible.
Well, I guess one more thing. From the creator's perspective, I hate how rushed. They made the show. Like, they could have, 2 seasons. They could have done it in 2 seasons. But they didn't. They let it I guess season was it 7, 8, or 8
The
or
last
9?
one I think was 8. Yeah.
8. So season 7 and 8 were so rushed.
Yeah.
When the first 6 seasons were just like so intricate, so like
Yeah.
everything point, everything had a purpose. And
That's
then
true.
season 8, they just jam like a couple of episodes like that are an hour and a half or something.
Yeah.
When I feel like that's a show that deserved an extra season or an
Yes.
extra 2 seasons
Yeah.
versus let's say something like Scandal that it's like, oh my God, now I'm bored season 5. Oh, it's picking up season 7 again. You know,
Yeah.
like this show deserved way more than it was given. That's all I'm gonna say.
At the end, yeah, I can see that for sure. And I feel like a lot of people agree. That's, it was rushed at the end. And they,
Oh, what was the episode with the Night Walkers? What
the
was it
one
called?
with, I can't remember the one with the dead, like the war against the dead, the Great War, probably.
How is that just one episode? This show has literally been leading up to this big old war. That should
Yeah.
have been at least 2 episodes. You know how we used to get hype with telenovelas or even like
Yeah.
sitcoms or something and it said to be continued and we were like, oh my God, kind of thing. That's what
Yeah.
should have happened. That was just too much. TEW, too much
Yeah.
for like.
Yeah, you're right. I agree.
And then the way that they were wrapping up the last episode, Daenerys died. King's Landing is in shambles. Cersei died. I think, if I'm remembering correctly, Cersei died with Jamie.
Yeah.
And all the resolution from a monarchy basically to a democracy.
Not full on democracy because,
Well, I mean,
yeah.
there
Although
are
Samuel Tarly wanted a democracy, he did kind of pitch that and they all laughed at him.
just a lot of things happen at the end,
Yeah.
It was just clumped. I don't know why. I guess budgets. But who cares about budgets? The US doesn't even care about budgets. So why did the Game of Thrones whatever. I digress. But I think we covered a lot. I mean, we could keep talking, but I'm sure you guys are bored. But that wraps up our review of Game of Thrones. Let us know, in the comments, who was your favorite character? What was your favorite episode? I think it was 7 or 8 or 8 or 9, because that's always like a big episode.
Episode 9. Yeah,
Is
the big one was episode 9.
Episode 9. Your favorite season, your favorite character. What do you think about the women characters? What do you think about the male characters?
Yeah.
Should Ned have said the truth and that would have just ended the show kind of thing in season 1? Like, what do we think about Daenerys and her dragons? Like, was she mythical at this point?
I mean, God.
Should Bran be the king of whatever was left? Let us know. But if you haven't already done so, please subscribe, turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our videos. Also, please share our videos with your friends. We're trying to grow our community, and I think we're slowly growing, which makes us super duper 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 happy. And we really appreciate you guys for joining us and, chatting with us in the comments. Like, we actually really look forward to it.
Yeah.
Laugh at all these comments. We also have social media, which Dee will tell you about.
We're on TikTok and Instagram at Hear Me Out DNE. So make sure you guys also follow us on there and like, share, comment on our content, and let us know what you guys would want to see through the socials. That would be a good way for us to also kind of interact with you guys as well.
Also, in the comments, if you guys want us to watch a particular show, I mean, we watch TV all the time. From superheroes to mythical stuff like Game of Thrones to Star Wars to, I don't even know. I'm watching SWAT right now.
Everything in between.
Yeah. Just let us know and we'll take a peek at it and watch it and review it. So we'll enjoy that very much. But we'll see you next time. Peace.
Bye.